Good day. This is Anagalactic bringing you another science presentation in cosmic geometry. We are well on our way to understanding the cosmos, geometrically at least. That is a necessary place to begin. If you don't have the right geometry, you won't get far. You won't get far in understanding the universe at all. If you use linear geometry, you'll never understand anything. That's the current state of science right now. Physics uses exclusively only linear geometry. That's unbelievable. That's just unbelievable. That our scientists are so dedicated to the linear geometric basis of Euclid. It hasn't changed. It hasn't changed at all since Euclid. The calculus changed nothing. Now, one development that did seemingly change the geometry was complex 2D geometry. The complex number system is extremely powerful for various applications in physics. These are all technological applications. Complex numbers have no place at all in universal geometry. That would be a horrendous mistake. The only mistake that could be worse, I suppose, would be if you assumed that the complex number system could be extended, for instance, to something like quaternion 3D rotation algebra using a fourth imaginary axis. Well, if you did that, you'd just really be shooting yourself in the foot. You would destroy physics forever if the physicists remained so stupid and nearsighted, troglodyte, that they kept using the complex number system in the form, for instance, that Einstein used it in. So Einstein ruined everything. Einstein really botched his job, and I still respect him, of course. I am nobody to be criticizing Albert Einstein, unless, of course, I want to actually get the goals that science has always wanted to get at our level, at this level here at Anagalactic. We're at the highest level, far above anyone in technology, far above anyone on YouTube. This is the true cutting edge of physics right here at Anagalactic. It's the only place that I find it. Well, that's understandable. It's because I began correctly. Now that is a very dangerous thing to say, because that means that I'm criticizing the scientific body of currently alive, rich white men. Well, you don't want to be contradicting the white, rich physicists. That's insane. That's stupid. I should never do that. Alas, there are just some men, like myself, not many, but there are some. Now, among those who do insist on the Einsteinian principle of truth, which goes back to the Emersonian principle of truth, which essentially just goes back to common logic. Of course the universe makes sense. We know it makes sense. However, in attempting to understand the universe, what you must never do is be satisfied with your assumptions when your assumptions are challenged by the universe itself. And it's okay for Einstein to be a bigwig. He's fine. We all love Einstein. I certainly do. But you have to understand what Einstein actually did. He was an industrial scientist. He wasn't a freedom fighter scientist. He's not a truth-seeking scientist. Now, he thought that he was. So this is not against Einstein at all. Oh no, it's not against Einstein. For the same reason that Darwinian theory whatever it became is not Darwin's fault. Darwin simply gave the picture the way he saw it. That's what a scientist does. No, it's not Darwin's fault. What happened after Darwin? That's Jay Gould's fault, and the thousands and tens of thousands, actually hundreds of thousands of shit-headed scientists who don't do their homework and lie to you about natural selection, which is not an actual function in the universe, anywhere. There is no such thing as natural selection. Well, certainly not in biology. That's been disproved. So it's a crime that your biologists keep repeating not what Darwin said. They're not repeating Darwin. They're repeating those who interpreted Darwin, when those men should have known better. Darwin had a perfectly good excuse for getting it backwards. And at least he was honest enough to say in his book that he got it backwards. Now, Einstein, he's such a funny man. Einstein is such a funny at several levels. It's not just his frizzy hair. It's the fact that he took a grid, the 3D system that science uses. Well, Einstein made a huge mistake by doing that. It's very clear from his insight into the geometry of gravity that he saw excruciatingly clearly what nobody else ever saw, is that gravity is a spherical phenomenon. It's not linear. It's spherical. So that's not linear. That means that linear algebra cannot work. It won't work. It refuses to work. The universe forbids it. Einstein was instrumental in getting the government into outer space. Einstein also gave the governments a tremendous gift, a new bomb. That was the gift of Albert, the gift of Switzerland, an atomic weapon because of E equals mc squared. Imagine that. Well, Einstein gave a much better gift to the government. Who's the only one who can pay for it, honey? So the government got space travel. Well, there was no government on Earth that thought there was ever going to be space travel. And space travel only came up on the human horizon in the discovery of computer technology and relativity. And you need both. You need both. If you don't have relativity, you can't go to the moon. And you're just out of luck forever. So Einstein got the algebra for space-time conversion. That means you can make up for the time lag in your light transmissions. Okay? But because his solution is a 4D pseudo-hyperbolic, hyper-complex solution, it requires hypercalculus. That cannot be done by a human. It cannot be done by a human. So, without computers to do those computations, nobody ever would have landed on the moon. It's out of the question. They would have crashed. Or missed. Certainly wouldn't have been able to re-enter the atmosphere correctly. That's a very fine line that you traverse coming back into Earth's atmosphere. Back in those days, it was hideously gross, the things that were flown to the moon, just made out of scrap iron, with computers that were barely smarter than your watch. And yet it was done, and it was done with general relativity and special relativity conversions. Or they could not have done it. Okay? And if for any reason I might be a little off that actually could be done at some extreme threshold to get to the moon, not to get anywhere else. Definitely not. There is no way to go interplanetary with your rocket or other vehicles. Currently only rockets, but we're working on getting more means of going through space. Well, you can't. You can't do it without general relativity. So that is the magnificent gift that Einstein gave to the government. And ever since then, the government, however many there are, I just always say government now, because who gives a fuck? It's a government that goes into outer space. Well, that's not good news. That's not good news at all. The government? You don't want the government to get anything. The government gets everything, so that's a wash. You don't want to start getting paranoid. I certainly don't. But it is overpoweringly crushing information that the United States government, the worst government of all, is now the master of outer space. That's just the bell tolling, darling. If you don't know that, you don't know anything. So that's not good. So what Albert did was not good. And when it comes to understanding the universe, which real men want to do, and there are always a few, you don't hear from them any longer. Anyone you can hear on YouTube, except for myself, is an absolute charlatan. Without any exceptions. They're all out of their minds. If they're trying to say that they're trying to understand the universe, no, they're not. That is not possible. If you want to understand the universe, which you should, you must listen to me now. Unless you have some other source. Well, I now know and I can prove you don't have any other source. I'm your only source. Because an amazing thing just happened within this past week. And I'm going to recount this because this is the formal announcement of a major discovery in physics, the first major discovery in natural science physics, which is the only correct goal for a wise man. If you're into technology, you're doomed and you can go home and play with yourself or your little toys. Okay? But if you're trying to do what a man is blueprinted to do for the sake of himself and others, the only correct goal, for the highest goal, you need to understand the universe for a reason. Okay? Now, we're not going to go into the reason right now. But you already know what I'm talking about, or if you don't, you're hopeless. So it's too late now to be playing patty cake, okay? So here's what really is happening at the cutting edge of science. At the inner cutting edge, we're trying to get at the strong force. At the outer cutting edge, we're trying to understand the origin of the universe, which, as you could guess, is absolutely out of the question. That will never be done. But what we definitely need to do is get rid of the bullshit theories to clear the path for those who really want to know. If you're really interested in the origin of the universe, that's of course a mighty high goal. Well, you've shot too high. You're going to have to lower your sights because no one will ever understand the origin of the universe. Except I will. I don't yet, but I know that I will soon. So you don't need to believe that. You must not believe it if you're a scientist until I prove it. Well, here comes the good news. I have proven it. Well, big, huge step on the way to proving that I'm the only real scientist on Earth right now. And here's why. It has to be irrefutable. That's why I'm laughing. It's irrefutable proof. So listen up. Here's how it goes. This over here is called a sphere. Do you understand what a sphere is? No! It's impossible that you know what that thing is, because I'm the only person who can explain it to you. So I've given the relationship so many times, you're too lazy to listen to my... You're not ever going to know what I said in the past, so I'm going to have to tell you now. But I'm going to say it so fast, it's going to make your head spin. And if you don't get it, it's not my fault. It's yours. So Don't you dare leave any criticism. This is your Black Swan Day. If you're tuning in for the first time, you're about to enter into real science. And nobody around you will, unless you get them to tune in and listen to me as well. Because from here on in, I'm the master. There is no more Leonard Susskind, Brian Greene, Michio Kaku, Dr. Sabina Hassenfelder, Lex Friedman, Kurchai Mongol. They're all out. They're out. They're gone. Because I got it. I got the answer. So, what's the answer that everyone's looking for? There are two. And only two. You need to know the origin of the universe, and you'll never get that. So what you need is to get as far as you can get before you can no longer figure out the origin. I already know that no one will ever figure that out, except me. I will figure it out. But I haven't yet, and therefore nobody else has either. So there is no origin to the universe. I think you know where that leaves the physicists. Okay, so the only way to get at the outer question, which is the origin of the whole thing, you first have to know its geometry. I can now prove that I have the correct geometry. Nobody else does. Try to guess if it's linear. Of course not. But try to guess what it is. There are two right answers. The one that would get you full credit, at least with me, and I'm the only one who can give credit, it's spherical. But of course you know that there's a big hole in that called infinitely extensive space, correct? Okay. So the correct answer, which I also have, it's hyperspheric, and that is technically correct. Now, there's a reason why nobody's ever going to figure out the origin of the universe. But the reason I state that I will be able to say so is because I will be able to show logically, rigorously, why you can't go further than my discovery, which is the correct geometry. But once you get the correct geometry, it's impossible to know the origin. And that makes sense. And that's the only solution that makes sense. That's why all the other solutions sound like they come from an insane asylum, especially the Big Bang. That is clinical insanity. That's as far out as you can get and still get people to believe you at all. They've done it. There's a lot of power behind that propaganda, but nobody knows the origin of the universe. So that's a fact. So you first have to know the geometry. I'm the only man who does know the geometry. Okay? And this is I'm going to prove this. I've already have, but now I can prove it much more tightly. This is a major breakthrough. So this only within the past week. So leading up to that, we're not at this time, and this aspect of cosmic super science, this is hyper science, this is the real thing. This is what grown-ups do. Your physicists are children. They're actually spoiled fucking brats. And I really don't like our physicists. Well, there's nothing to like. That's why. I'm a rational man. I'm not allowed to play patty cake with these monsters who just suck you in and suck money in for the sake of their lies. It's illegal. You can't do that. Well, it's illegal to murder millions of people too, but it's done all the time in history. It's being done right now in Israel, so it's never going to stop. So it's okay for the physicists to be fucking liars. Because everyone else cheats. It's the only way to get ahead, right? Yeah, but there's still a second game in town. But the men who go that way are vanishingly rare. I'm one of the last of that type. I'm sure I'm not alone. There are 144,000. Or if you go back to the time of Elijah, there are 7,000. There's always others besides yourself. But god damn it, every single one of us feels so fucking alone. It's unbelievable how alone you feel when everyone around you is stark, staring mad. Well, you can only appear one way to that crowd. Yeah. You know what that means. Because they're not going to stand for that kind of criticism. Nobody's going to call these fat cats psychotically disturbed liars. They will not settle for that at all. Because they have government backing. What I have is mutual hatred between myself and the government and all of its subsystems, especially our lying, cheating, inhuman physicists. To a man! And a woman if you include Dr. Sabina Hassenfelder, whom I love. Don't forget, this is posturing, because this is a meeting of minds. This is not people pointing guns at each other's head. That's done everywhere else except here. But this is far more ruthless. And none of these men and women are getting away with anything as long as there's someone, in this case, myself. So, what we're looking at is the inner limit. We're not trying to go out to the edge. We're trying to look in. As you very well know, that leads to 3 major topics. 1, atomic geometry, on which I've given 3 lectures in the past 10 days. Atomic level geometry. It's fair to say that I'm the only man on Earth who understands that geometry. Yeah. Oh, I got it all. And as soon as you want to turn this off, just any old time. But don't you dare fucking leave a comment if you're leaving here. You leave a comment if you're staying, or I'll simply erase you off the map. So this is where it's happening. So you need to know quantum mechanics, okay? And the third thing you need to know is light propagation. Light emission, light transmission, and light absorption. That's one thing. The other thing you need to know, is the meaning of the quantum. And the third thing you need to know is atomic geometry. There's one more though. As you go into the atom, you discover that it has an orbital system, which is a stupid way to say it. A geometer, who's the only rational scientist in the room at this time, that would be moi. Those are shells. They're called shells. They're shells, not orbitals. They're shells. So the atom is made of shells, and one other thing, and only one other thing. It's made of a center. That center can be as few as 1 proton. We will concentrate only on that as we study for the next 20 seconds the geometry of the atom. The geometry of the atom is this. There's a fixed shell for the electron and a fixed center with a radius for the proton. And that describes all of the elements except for one unbelievable, very ticklish additional bit of structure. And that is the fact that the universe is not just made of hydrogen ions. It's not just made of hydrogen atoms. With or without deuterium. With or without tritium. Your brain learning from your colleges has destroyed your mind. Those are meaningless in our context. You need to know what is a proton. Does anybody know? Not yet. Except I do now. Here is what a proton is. It's a spatial position. And that's all it is, for now, because that gives a perfect definition to the only other particle. And there's only one other particle, and it's not a particle. So you have a particle, which is a proton, the only particle in space. And that gives you the clue to the electron. There is one other pseudoparticle, but it doesn't have a spatial position. What it has is a quantum probabilistic locality. And the reason for that is known only to me. Only I know the reason why the electron is so different. But everything then makes sense, and I mean everything. So now we're getting to the formal announcement of probably, well, almost certainly, the most important discovery in physics or mathematics in the past 70 years. My discovery, which I'm announcing now. So hold on to your seat, you doubters. So you know what the atom looks like now. And all of the quantum electrodynamists and all the quantum chromodynamists and all the quantum field theorists all put together with all of their theories, which are myriad, on how to explain what is an atom, an electron, and a proton. How to do that? They don't know. They can't. And so they draw these funny barbell shapes, saying, well, that's our new understanding of the atom. Those are mathematical involutions that they're drawing. Bohr got it right. There is no question about that. Even they themselves admit it. And when they draw these crazy, double-lobed or just funny-looking, what they call orbitals, those are not orbitals. They're doing the same bullshit that the standard model particle physicists are doing by really translating their mathematical guesses to some kind of physical form. 100% failure for 100 years. So the last bit of information we got about quantum mechanics that helped science in any way was Paul Dirac. I'm sorry, that was a century ago. A little less, not much. So you have to go back at least to Dirac. That's not far enough. Dirac didn't get it right either, because nobody can get it right for reasons I just told you. Try to remember what's being said so you might learn something for a change. This is the time to learn. You can drop your guards for this. So what we have is the Bohr atom. All it is a nucleus, which is a sphere. There's a sphere of protons. And then there are spheres around that sphere. Everything in the atom is a sphere. Everything is a sphere. Everything is a sphere. Everything is spherical. We're trying to find the center. Do you know how far we've gotten? Of course you don't. Because they don't want to talk about that. Because that might help you. And then you might guess. And then some of you might go through school and actually get it right. That's not allowed. I'm allowing it. Now's the time to allow the right answer. Because it can be proved. So you have a spherical system that's being computed with linear numbers. That's why they're out of their fucking minds. They're going out of their minds. You now have a mini worlds. Well, that's the same thing as a Big Bang. It means you're psychotic. You lost it. You're out. You're out. So where is the center? We can measure it out to 0.8 femtometers. And if you leave a comment to correct me, you better leave the correction as well. Don't you dare just say that I'm wrong about something and say that Wikipedia says so. You fucking cite the whole thing. You give the right figure then. Dumb shit. It's 0.7 or, depending on your source, 0.8 femtometers. Who gives a fuck? Do you understand the important salient part of that fact? It's between 7 and 8 femtometers on the -1 scale. Okay, so that's the center as far as we know. Well, we also know there's something inside. That's why you have hadron colliders. You know what hadron collider means, you jackass? It means a proton collider. Why are they doing that? Don't believe what they say. They're making trillions of dollars for the government. They have to lie. So they're not going to ever tell you what's really happening. I will. There's something inside the proton. I discovered it from Gelman's mathematical guess. It's a simple harmonic oscillator based on my discovery of the basis of the true number system of the universe, which is a 1-2-2-1 harmonic. And if you don't follow that, it's because you're retarded. So you can go home and play with yourself. But you're not going to criticize the last scientist on Earth because you are brain dead. This is not a troll session. You either catch up or you get out. Those are your only two choices. You only get one slap at me, and then you're gone forever, and that's final. And I'll remember every single one of you. So far, there's only been a half a one. I'm not worried. Don't be afraid to leave comments. You would really have to blow it to get my anger. Be sure you leave comments. You need to understand this. So what is this? Here's the answer. We're going to close this at 35 minutes. No more than that. In the atomic system, you have two parts. The center that goes in, right? That's the protonic core. Remember, just one proton. So going into the proton, we don't know anything, except what Gelman guessed. Going out, we see everything. It's a shell system. What I just discovered is going in is a reciprocal shell system. That's a major discovery, which I can absolutely verify mathematically, but most importantly, geometrically. This justifies Emmy Noether getting her Nobel Prize for the force symmetry law that she came up with. This also validates Newton. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. How come there's those goddamn shells? What holds that fucker together? It has to be something inside the goddamn proton. Well, everybody till now made the same mistake Thomson did. Most understandable, but still wrong. It's a mush. When the protons get together, it's a mush. That's shitheaded. Of course it's not a mush. I missed it too. But I'm a beginner and I can be forgiven. These are men who are experts with at least 3 generations of knowledge. They missed it. It's so simple you can understand it right now. And here's what it is. The shell system goes out in quantum spherical shells? Yes? Yes. Quantum spherical shells. Well, what about if there's 2 protons? You get more shells, right? 3 protons. What if you have 100 protons? Let's just round it down to 92. That's uranium. How many shells does uranium have? Do you know? Is it 6? Is it 7? How many are maximum? What's the limit? The limit is the number of protons in the center. That directly affects the number of shells. If there's just 1 proton, there's just 1 shell. If you have 92 protons, you may have 6 or 7 shells. I haven't looked it up. It's not important. May be important to you, though. But this needs to be dissected. It's not important at this level. All you need to see is there are shells, plural. Doesn't make any difference if it's 6 or 7, you jackass! So there's either 6 or 7 or 8 or 11 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9. But there's not 1. So going in to the proton, what do you think happens in there? How do the protons arrange themselves? How do the protons arrange themselves? It's on a reciprocal shell system. I got it! Stay tuned to Anagalactic for more treats. I hope you're having a good time. I certainly am. But I have got to get this going! You want to help? You're going to become famous one way or another if you try to help, but there's a trade-off. You don't want to step into the arena unless you're willing to go in. I'll go in alone, I don't need you. But try to understand this, because when you do, you're going to be the first of a new generation of science. Because this is going to take over, because I'm right. And that's 35 minutes. All right, stay tuned. We'll be right back with more. Today is the 18th of August, a Sunday. This discovery that I just announced to you occurred yesterday. So you're the first. But you will not be the last to hear this. So you want to keep on tuning in? It's because you have a very high calling. You can trust that from me. If you don't trust me, go find Bozo the Clown then, asshole. We'll see you later.